Welcome to Source Not Found, a podcast about the worst versions of your favorite things. Every other week, we talk about IPs, franchises, and fandom solely through their sequels, side projects, and spin-offs. Basically, anything except for the source material. My name is Bo Woodall, and I am your very favorite bracket boy.
And I'm Brandon June, and if you get your ass kicked, it's probably me on the other end of the line. That's a quote from Fred Durst for the Limp Bizkit / Sega Dreamcast ad campaign. I don't know if you remember that one.
I don't. I was genuinely afraid for a moment. I thought you were getting like wild aggro to our listeners, and I was like, oh my god, we're gonna have to.
I'm going like full John Romero, suck it down.
We're gonna have to go in a way different direction for our podcast.
No, if I were speaking from any place of truth, it would be if you see your adversary run around in circles and then into a wall and then fumbling with their weaponry, it's probably me on the other end of the line, because I'm not kicking your ass.
I was gonna say I've seen you play Mario Kart. It's a treat.
When they were pushing the Dreamcast online capabilities, they in the gaming magazines they had the Limp Bizkit endorsed. He was signing Dreamcast, Fred Durst, and they were like really pushing like, oh yeah, Fred Durst, the coolest guy in music, has a Dreamcast, so that makes it the coolest console, right? Right, fellow kids.
Hello, fellow kids. Yeah, sure. I would love to say that we're going to give you guys some crazy anecdotes about our experience with consoles, but I'm just wildly excited to get into these brackets.
It was kind of unforgivable to like do half a bracket and then just like leave everybody hanging, but
it hurt me. So let's
it hurt us. It did.
Let's jump right into it.
Let's do it.
So let's move into the Great Eight. These we should be able to move fast into the finals.
All right.
Dreamcast versus Master System.
Oh, I mean, I really love that Master System design, but this is Sega versus Sega.
It's Dreamcast.
There's a reason I'm a Sega fan. Dreamcast did it for me.
All right. Super Famicom versus Genesis. Oh my god, it's the Clash of the Titans. There it is.
You would think we planned for this. Oh, the Battle of the Ages.
We did not.
The bloodiest console war that was ever fought. Oh, man. Well, okay, it would be so easy if it were Super Nintendo versus Genesis. The Genesis looks better. Again, we're not talking games. We're just not talking games. Design.
We're talking consoles. I know where I am. I am at Genesis. It is hard to beat that xenomorph-looking fucker. The Genesis looks like it will kill you, which is so fucking cool.
Yeah, I do love my Super Famicom. I love the look of that thing, but Genesis, it takes it. It does. It's a cool design. It's a cool system.
PS5 versus Xbox 360. The curve versus the curve.
Real curvy. I mean, the controller takes it for PS5. We keep talking about it. It's anytime that controller goes up against anything else, I'm sorry, it's going to win. Even removing all the haptics and functionality to make it fair, it just feels
it's a better
so good
controller.
in your hands. Oh, man.
And also, I do have to say, the wings on the PS5 are fun to look at. Like, I know that a lot of people bitch about the fact that the PlayStation 5 is a console that's too big.
Yeah.
Like, it's too large for their shelves or whatever.
It is, yeah.
But the wings are so fucking aesthetically pleasant. It is a fun console to look at.
Yeah, it is. It's wild that this Sony put this thing out.
Yeah.
For a Japanese company, a company centered in Japan to put out this product that does not fit in most Japanese homes. I mean, the thing about Japan is like living spaces are tiny. Ceilings are low. Narrow spaces, narrow rooms. And then you got this big fucking thing that I'm always trying to figure out a good place to put it. The one thing I will say, aesthetically, I love it. Janky as fuck with the removable stand. I feel like a good portion of the time when I'm like plugging in the controller to charge it or like adjusting something slightly, it is becoming unadhered to or like unclasped. Like the stand is becoming. Huh? No, it's like the lips on the back.
No, it screws in though.
Oh, you have it vertical?
Yeah.
I don't. I have it horizontal.
Oh, okay.
I have it horizontal, so it like pops into the lips.
Mine's vertical,
on the stand.
and I screw it into the base, and it doesn't move a fucking inch.
I don't do anything vertical. One reason being I live in Japan and we have a lot of earthquakes. So anything that's sort of even mildly precarious, given to toppling over,
You can't. Yep.
doing that.
Yep.
It would be even harder for me to find a place to put this vertically, to be honest. It does. I found a shelf for it, but it barely gets in there. But yeah, I'm not crazy about the stand, but I like big, ambitious, bold design ideas.
That's my big thing for the PlayStation 5 is like they moved so far from all the other shit they did. Yeah. They're like, hey, you know what? Let's go absolutely buck wild. Let's give it wings. Mm-hmm. Let's make it bigger. Let's give it more space and memory. Let's make the stands weird. And hey, you know what? Let's just go wild, gang.
It seems like a direct response to what we were talking about, these trends where it's like,
yeah,
make it more like mass appeal, less communicating or advertising what it's really designed for, which is at the end of the day to play video games. This is like, no. PlayStation. No, this is a station.
PlayStation. This is a station of play.
It's a fucking alien monolith.
They very much embrace that.
Yeah. We're going PS5.
All right. GameCube versus the Switch.
Ooh.
I know. I suddenly paused and was like, fuck, I don't have anything really strong to say right now.
Okay. The thing is, I guess we gotta like sort of momentarily forget that you can get like the GameCube controllers for your Switch. Like you can play Switch games via GameCube controller, right? So maybe forget that for a second. Let's just talk about the stock.
I can get an N64 controller for my Switch, for Christ's sake.
You got any number of options to play it by other means.
We're talking straight Switch versus straight GameCube.
Right. I was going to say stock options. So stock options, I would rather have a GameCube controller in my hand than the Joy-Cons or actually holding the Switch like in portable mode. Just because of the form factor. I hate that fucking washboard block. I don't like it.
I 100% disagree with you.
I need some hand grips.
I've done the GameCube controller and I fucking hate it.
Oh, this one's going to get contentious. All right, what about like on your shelf, on your entertainment system, GameCube or Switch? Like Switch in docked mode. I'm going
Switch.
Cube. Ooh. I like the Cube. It's cute. It's unique. It's iconic.
This is the first time I think we're gonna have to actually revert to our tiebreaker, because I am 100% Switch.
Yeah, I'm not 100% on this, but I tend towards GameCube.
Okay, so find your GameCube release your launch titles.
All right, we gotta go launch because it's not fair. Switch can play any number of things through the storefront, like the eShop, and then there are a bunch of backwards compatible games as well that have been made available through the services. So we gotta just launch, right?
Just launch.
Yikes! This is not gonna do me any favors. Okay. I think I joined the Switch camp. Luigi's Mansion, which it's a fine game.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I'm not like the biggest fan, but I enjoyed it. Wave Race Blue Storm, Super Monkey Ball. Yeah, it's a good game. Star Wars Rogue Leader Rogue Squadron 2. Okay, now from here on out, nothing is interesting to me. You got All-Star Baseball 2002, Madden NFL 2002, NHL Hits 2002, Dave Muir Freestyle BMX 2, Tony Hawk's
No one
Pro
cares
Skater.
about those.
Well, Tony Hawk 3, that was a good game. Disney's Tarzan Untamed, Crazy Taxi, but I'm sorry, Crazy Taxi is a Dreamcast game, it always will be, and Batman Vengeance.
I'm sorry, dude. Sequels are rough when it comes to launch titles.
I mean, the Star Wars game was very cool.
The Star Wars game was very cool. But I've got Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Oh, okay. Switch wins. Okay. It's the Switch. Nintendo do what Nintendo don't.
We are in our final four. We have 2 Sega systems, 1 Sony and 1 Nintendo. That's pretty great. First round, we've got Dreamcast versus Genesis.
Dreamcast. It's easy. We haven't even, I guess are you going Dreamcast?
I am also going Dreamcast. We'll be talking about it in the finals.
Because we haven't talked about Dreamcast yet, right? So, okay.
We have not. Genesis, we know. Xenomorph looking motherfucker. It's awesome. Super cool.
It is. But
guys, I would like to point out that none of these consoles are bad. Like, if you love games, play games. Like, if you love the Atari 7800 and you want to play that, play that.
Well, you know, we said that at the outset, and I agree, but this is, again, largely just an aesthetic conversation. And this
is what we think look the best and feel the best for us.
And in that regard, some of these are, in fact, bad.
Yes, some of these feel bad for us.
Even if they're great games and great experiences to be had, sometimes the mechanism, the method by which you play those games is not ideal.
And we have the PS5 versus the Switch. That's pretty easy for me.
Yeah, I have not had design-wise, aesthetic-wise, many good things to say about the Switch thus far. So it's PS5 for sure.
PS5. Okay, so now we are at the finals, leading toward our champion, and I feel like this is going to be an interesting conversation. It is the Dreamcast versus the PlayStation 5.
Man. All right.
It is the system that made me fall in love with systems versus the system that I'm currently in love with.
The thing is, I was already in love with games by that point, right? Dreamcast dropped $99.99 for us in the US. It was a year earlier in Japan, which, fun fact, learned this recently. The VMU, so we'll have to talk about this. The memory card for the Dreamcast is not a memory card. It is a visual memory unit. It is a self-contained little sort of...
It's a fucking Tamagotchi.
It's a Tamagotchi. It's got a little D-pad on it. It's got buttons. It's got functionality. It's got mini games you can play on it, as well as storing your save games. It popped into the controller. There was a window in the controller so that you could see it at all times. Most games had some sort of fun interactivity, or something that displayed on the memory card, on the VMU, while you're playing. Say you're playing Soul Calibur, you have your character, your chosen character, just like swinging a sword around on your controller at you while you're playing. It allowed you, like playing like the NFL 2K games, you could pop it out, choose your play on the VMU, pop it back in, so that if you're playing co-op, or not co-op, if you're playing with a friend, you're not seeing each other choose their plays on screen and able to like sort of divine what they're going to do. They could keep it secret. Very cool. Like, if the console had lasted longer, there might have been any number of other things, other ideas, ways to make use of this thing. But anyway, to say that this thing was so much more than just a memory card, that it actually launched. It went on sale several months before the Dreamcast did in Japan. Like, the VMU in Japan, I think you could buy it in like July of '98, and the console wasn't going to come for a few months after that. And it launched with, like, I think a Godzilla minigame or something. I don't know about you. For me, the only time I ever really took it out...
A Sonic minigame as well. A Sonic minigame as well.
Well, but that was... You had to have Sonic Adventure for that, for, like, raising your Chow, right?
Mm-mm.
In the
Not
game?
whenever it was released in the States.
Do I have that wrong? Okay. Well, that's just to say, like, that's how substantial this thing was. Underutilized for sure. In maybe the same way that, like, we were talking about the PS4 touchpad. Like, wasn't made use of by many games, but when it was something special. So I was already in love with games, but, like, you know, being 12 and waiting for this thing to come out and reading EGM faithfully every month and seeing all, like, the import news and, like, oh my God, Marvel versus Capcom is going to be on this thing. And it looks like it does in the arcades. It looks perfect. Look at this fucking wild controller that's got this, like, removable memory card with a screen on it. 4 controller ports in the front. It's ready to go. It's like the N64 vibe. Like, we're here to be the party machine, to be your one-stop shop for, I mean, the games that came out in there, like, some really great 4-player games. To have, like, Quake 3 Arena on console at that time was wild. That controller, I love the controller. At the time, I thought this is the best controller ever made. That said, D-pads are not great. The fact that you have so many 2D fighters on there and you have a kind of like a wobbly ass kind of janky D-pad, not ideal. It's not good for fighting games, really, that controller.
Or platforming, for that matter.
Well, that I might disagree on that one, actually. I think it's fine for other things. I think, because it's good. It's a good analog stick. I like it.
The analog stick's fine, but you gotta be real careful with platformers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of like some of the platformers of the era and how much is controller and how much is just kind of like, we're still kind of janky in that era a little bit with some of the platforming. But otherwise, like, it feels substantial. It feels good in your hands. The triggers are nice. We hadn't really. The PlayStation was doing the DualShock thing, but it wasn't a common mainstay of console controllers to have the dual analog sticks yet. It would have really benefited from that. Talking about Quake 3, they had like a weird workaround where like you would strafe on like your X and B buttons on the face buttons and then move forward on Y and then backwards on A. So all your movement is taking place on those face buttons, and then the analog is for your vision to like look around. It worked fine at the time. I thought it was like,
no, that's garbage. That sucks.
I mean, the thing is weird, but again, to put yourself back in that time and like, I mean, even on the, like, you look at the PS2 where like, okay, it shipped with that controller with 2 analog sticks. Like, there were still games like well into like the Armored Core series didn't make use of the analog stick until like well into the 2000s. And there were some like still holdovers, not really moving forward off of the D-pad yet. So anyway, just to say, like, to judge it on 98 for Japan, 99 for America, still very innovative, even if it is missing that functionality that we now sort of take for granted with current controller designs. Another thing that I'm not crazy about is that the controller cable to connect it to the console comes out of the bottom of the controller as opposed to the top.
Yeah, that sucks.
It's a weird choice because you're popping the VMU in there too. Another thing that was really nice, having 2 slots in your controller so you could have a VMU going and the rumble pack in the back. They did try and get around it. They got like the divot in the back of the controller where you can pop the cable into it and it holds it for you, but it is still sort of a workaround for a less than ideal design choice. So there's that. Console wise, it's got like vibe. It's similar to like, we were talking about the PS1, the redesign of the PS1 that launched in 2000.
Right. Yeah.
It's got those vibes.
Same sort of vibes.
Yeah, similar color, right? It's just like small, compact, kind of. It's cute, but without being like cutesy. It's not the GameCube level of cute, but it's, it's like just like a sweet little guy there on your shelf, right? White, smooth, rounded.
GameCube was like, hey, I'm gonna make you something that looks like a cute, like what Mario punches whenever he jumps. I'm gonna make you a cute little cube that you'll love on your little shelf. And the Dreamcast was more like, I'm gonna give you something that looks cute but not cutesy. It's gonna look nice on your shelf, but it's not gonna look like that you are just a gamer person.
Yeah, I guess it's like similar to like Saturn and other things. Like, it's nothing crazy, but it has personality somehow. It's kind of wild how you can have personality shine through in these, when you really look at it, like the form factor, the design. It's nothing outlandish. It's not a PS5 with the giant wings, it's not the Master System with the technical display on the top. It just is what it is, but it's got the modem right in there, which was such a big deal at the time. The 56K modem just out of the box.
It had a modem out of the box was absolutely game changing, and the fact that they didn't try to keep the Dreamcast around longer is baffling to me, because it was probably 5 years to 10 years ahead of its time.
Well, I don't want to say anything any bad about it. It was ahead of its time, but maybe only slightly, because like that was part of what killed it, right? It's like right around the corner. There were a lot of people holding out because they know the PS2 was on the way. And like out of the box, yeah, the Dreamcast shipped with that modem. PS2, you needed like a network adapter, but it wasn't long before like consoles were getting online, and the era of online game, for at least us console scrubs, had finally dawned, right? So it was like slightly ahead of its time, but it was like trying such wild things. And the thing to remember is like, to even be a year ahead of your time or 2 years ahead of your time in the 90s is an insane feat. Look at what we talked about in this conversation today. We had the TurboGrafx 16 and stuff like that launching at 89, so like into the 90s. And we've got from that up through now the era of the Polygon, right? Through the PlayStation, through the Sega Saturn, through the N64, into the PS3, into these like HD systems. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't get that far. So we've got that, the era of the Polygon, into like now here at the end of the 90s. We're about to move into this whole new era. Just a huge level of innovation and just like graphical evolution in just a 1 decade, right?
Right.
So it was ahead of its time in that regard. And I like the console design. It's not like the most memorable thing, but it's just nice. It's a nice little guy.
I just think it's neat.
Pick him, cradle him in your arms, Now, you cannot do that with the PS5.
It's between that and the PlayStation 5.
Yeah, that's the thing. Okay. To judge that, the thing is to manage to be innovative still with that controller. Because the thing is, like, yeah, there are more innovations and what do I want to say? There's more at your disposal when designing a controller these days in terms of like what controllers are able to do and the cost of components, what we've discovered along the way. But the thing is, there's also more competition and there's less room for you to really stand out with a really interesting or innovative design in your controller, because a lot of things now we're just taking it for granted that everyone's doing that, right? So to really like make me, the first time I held that thing in my hands and started up Astrobot, the pack-in game for PS5, and the fact that every once in a while, it happened the first time I put on a VR headset, happened the first time I played Super Mario 64. These experiences are fleeting, but they still manage to happen. To just me realize in the moment, like, oh, I'm beaming. I have a big smile across my face, and I feel like I'm 8 years old again, seeing something completely new or experiencing something for the first time that I hadn't maybe ever, or at least in a while.
Yeah, that was me playing Spider-Man Miles Morales and swinging through New York City again. Like I had platinumed Spider-Man 1 on PlayStation 4. But for some reason, the controller made swinging feel more natural, and it made me feel more engrossed and immersed. Like, no shit, I am currently in the process of platinuming. I am currently in the process of getting platinum on Spider-Man 2. And half the time, I'm not even trying for that last goal. I'm just swinging around, having a good time. It just feels so good.
The haptics really do.
Not just the game. It's the feel of the controller. It just feels good. And that's something special.
I mean, that's what we're really talking about at the end of the day here today. It's that it's not just about the games. It is about the holistic experience of playing via this device. There's a reason that a lot of us have such nostalgia for certain consoles, because these days, all you need is a PC to play any number of games easily and almost perfectly. Like, some consoles are harder to emulate than others. There's a reason some of us choose, like me, to get a CRT and like a Sega Saturn or a Super Famicom or whatever, and plug it into that thing and play it that way.
Or me with my Nintendo 64 to play Castlevania.
There you go.
Yeah, same sort of shit, dude.
Yeah. So that's part of it. I totally agree with what you're saying. So this is weird because I'm looking at these two choices. I'm looking at the Dreamcast.
Well, there's also, for me, there's this. The wings on the PlayStation 5, they did not have to add those. They do not do anything.
Right.
It is the first time I have seen a console make an aesthetic choice.
Really? Well, I would say they all do. Do you
mean
just
I mean like purely. Like, you can remove the wings from the PlayStation 5 and it still functions.
I see what you're saying. It's definitely the most outlandish of them all, but I would argue that we've seen this constantly in terms of they're just usually smaller, where it's like whether you needed to bevel something or ridge something or have like the sort of table legs on the 3DO that I was talking about, or the toilet seat shape of the Jaguar. Any number of things, like they're not in the box. Yeah.
I'm talking about things that like you can take off, and like people are selling customized versions of those wings.
Right.
That you can put on your PlayStation.
Right.
Like, you can remove your wings and have and buy ones that are painted like Miles Morales' Spider-Man suit and pop those onto the side of yours. They are purely there for aesthetic reasons only.
I definitely see what you're saying. I guess I just meant that to me seems just the sort of more, again, outlandish version of changing out your faceplate on previous like other consoles have allowed you to do that, right? Or
I guess.
having, features or purely aesthetic choices in your console design. Like, there's not usually wings; they're usually more understated, or just like a little flourish here, something protruding there. Nothing crazy. This is like one where, oh, we have like these giant wings, this whole general design, and none of it is necessary. We could have easily made a box.
It just
right?
seems so wildly customizable, and it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't. And the thing is, I appreciate it and I love it in spite of it being sort of a nuisance. But my knee jerk isn't to be like, I love that about it. Even though I do appreciate, again, I appreciate originality, ambition, and sort of like big, wild ideas. I do. I think to me, it's like, it's a unique design, but it never really, to me, screamed like, oh, I love the way it looks. I appreciate that it's unique, but it's not like some of these designs, again, they just hit me. I love the way that Master System looks. I love the way some of these consoles look. It just hits me, and it might just be personal preference, and who knows where that originates within all of us. Might be like, what we grew up really enjoying and a bit of nostalgia or whatever. But to me, it's like, I think it's cool, the fact that they tried that, but it's not, if I just look at it visually, I don't know. It's fine. It doesn't really, it's like a modern art piece,
Sure. Yeah. So I guess my question is, are you going for Dreamcast or PlayStation 5?
My inclination would be to choose the PS5 controller, just because, again, it's the best to ever do it. But choose the Dreamcast console, which is weird. I expected, because I'm such a Dreamcast fanboy, to gush about it at some point and to have it move along in the rankings, but then get knocked off because it's not one that I look to as being like the most interesting aesthetic choice as a console, right?
Yeah.
And I guess I'm starting to wonder, like, is that the sweet spot where you have a genuine, unique look and personality that is communicated through your design, but you are not doing that by way of being outlandish or ostentatious or really like taking up space or like putting yourself in everyone's face, like, look at me, I'm here, notice me. It's getting back to the core design of like, we are a video games console, and just with some little tinkering and like design choices around that core design of maybe a CD drive in the top and some controller ports in the front and a power switch, and that's what you need. And then what you do with that, you don't have to get crazy with it to make it unique enough to stand out. And the Dreamcast does stand out. You wouldn't confuse it with another console,
Right.
And it's not, if I look at it in terms of like, fits on a shelf, it's not unwieldy. If I want to transport it somewhere, I can do that easily, take it to a friend's house. And then the controllers, even though I do have issues with the D-pad, the cable's that's not a deal breaker. It's just like a slight nuisance. The ambition there, the Dreamcast controller has all the ambition of maybe the PS5 console design, right? It was a big, bold swing for something. And those swings have functionality within them. You can do stuff with that VMU. I would go Dreamcast. How about you?
I'm with you on just everything you just said was everything I could possibly say about the Dreamcast. So I'm going to leave that be. I am hard pressed not to go PlayStation 5.
Yeah, you like that console design. You do.
I really do.
Yeah.
I love
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I love the curves.
Yeah,
like
the curves.
I love the curves. I love the wings. I mean, obviously we've talked about how much I love the fucking controller. You also. But there is a simplicity and timeliness to the Dreamcast that is hard to say no to. I am happy for PlayStation 5 to take a second place to Dreamcast. In this case.
I'm not gonna say no to that. But I did consider, just for fun, let's look at the launch list.
Launch list is gonna be rough for you, bud.
You think?
I'm gonna be honest with you right now. I already know two of the launch titles from the PS5, and I know that two of them already are going to be very, very hard.
What you got?
The Demon's Souls remake. Quite possibly the most beautiful game I've ever played in my entire life. and Spider-Man Miles Morales.
That was a PS5 launch, huh? I played that on PS4. I didn't have a PS5, so I am not one to ask.
PS5 launch games. Let's see what we're looking at here. Oh shit. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Astro's Playroom, Bug Snacks, Dead by Daylight, Demon Souls, Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, Maneater, Godfall, Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate. But Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Demon Souls, and Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, those would be the three that I would... those are the ones that would dignify this whole thing.
I mean, it's hard for me to argue against some of those, because, yeah, I'm a big fan of Miles Morales as well. Assassin's Creed, I haven't played Valhalla, so I don't know. A lot of those games, they're good, but I guess, what do I want to say? They sort of laugh. They're Ubisoft games. It's the open world Ubisoft game of insert year, you know?
Yeah, I get it.
Okay, let me just give you a couple, because on Dreamcast we had Power Stone. We had House of the Dead 2. We had Sonic Adventure. So, Sonic Adventure, like, I'm not the biggest fan of that game, actually, but when that game came out, like, playing that at, like, the kiosk at, like, Babbage's or, like, not GameStop.
It was massive. It was so good.
To see that, like, to play that, like, man, like, this is the next generation for sure. It was so beautiful. And that demo stage, like, running at the camera away from, like, the orca, and just, it was cool. It was cool, man.
For me, the PlayStation 5 remake of Demon Souls was maybe the first time that I watched a video game or played a video game and was like, holy shit, this is what video games were supposed to be like.
Yeah, I don't have any argument against those launch titles. I guess I just, in 1999, the leap that Sonic Adventure was taking, at least at first, I mean, the more you played it, the more, you know, the less, I don't want to say revolutionary it felt, but just in how it looked. To have, like, some of these arcade games in your home, though, right? Like, that was the appeal, really getting into, like, the PlayStation generation. Like, oh, man, some of these games, like, that I had to go to the arcade to play, now I can play them at home. And you were always sacrificing a little bit in terms of, like, either visual fidelity or whatever. But right. The Dreamcast was one, like, oh, no, this is like the Naomi board. Like, this is an arcade board in your house now. And all those Sega arcade games, and not just Sega, like Namco. I haven't even gotten to my top pick, which I think seals the deal for me. But man, I got Dreamcast at launch, $99.99, and the game I chose to get was Soul Calibur. And fuck me, that's the only game I had for, I don't know, like a month maybe, until I saved up to get something else. It didn't even matter. Just Soul Calibur all day. It was so special to have that in your house. It still looks good. I recently got, like, the VGA, finally got, because Dreamcast does VGA out, and I got that. Oh man, it's so pretty. So I guess it's like, I love Spider-Man too. Like, I love the games you listed, but then Astrobot is equally, see, to me, that would be the case for the PS5 launch, would be Astrobot.
Astrobot is also on their launch list, but I never really got into that one. As soon as I got it, I started playing Demon Souls and was like, holy fuck me, it's wild. Just so joyful. It's such a joyful run through PlayStation history, and it's just a bunch of small ideas packed into this little short and sweet pack-in console experience. And the fact that it had a pack-in game, because that doesn't happen anymore, but it used to be, you know, you get your Super Nintendo and it's got Super Mario World in the box. There would be, I mean, you have bundles these days, but to have something like, if you didn't buy anything else, you can still take your PS5 home, you can hook it up, and you got something to play. And it's really good. Right. Man, the launch, I feel like I just undercut my own argument, but I still want to say Dreamcast. But that was a very good case for PS5 that you weren't even trying to make. I sort of shepherd you into it. I was genuinely willing to say PS5 comes in second.
Did I just shoot myself in the foot? That didn't clarify it at all for me. Man, we love both of these things. We got to choose one, don't we? That's hard.
I think based on, I think it's completely fair to say Dreamcast as the number one based on all the things that it offered at its time. PlayStation 5, I feel like, gets a knock because it's the most recent. There's a bias there.
There is, and it's like, you sort of have to, it's hard, again, to compare things that are decades apart, because obviously, like, to take it in full, like, if I were on a desert island that somehow had power and a television there ready to go, it's like, what console are you bringing? Like, I'm bringing a PS5, absolutely, no doubt, because
right, just
pick any year, and you got so many strong releases that would just blow any year of the Dreamcast out of the water, even though it wasn't around that long, right? It's not fair, but like, you got the backwards compatibility, you got all these things available through like digitally through the storefront, you know? It's just
right.
Not to mention like the functionality, just the general functionality of like, okay, you want to watch like Netflix or whatever, like Hulu or something on that thing, you know? You want to get online.
Or DVDs or whatever.
It's just incomparable.
I think it's completely fair to say Dreamcast takes it, with PlayStation 5 a close second.
For me to like, we were supposed to bring in all those aspects to clarify or to break the tie. To me, they muddled the waters, but to take it back to the original idea for this conversation today, which is console aesthetics, Dreamcast wins for me. So I feel good about that.
Cool. I'm right there with you.
Wow. That was fun. That was like, what a just journey through, like down memory lane and then off on memory road.
That was a bunch.
Memory roundabout, and
we didn't even talk about like the games that we played or launches or any. Man, that's a bunch.
That's the thing, because like when you're preparing for our like what we were going to do with this bracket idea we had, and then we had the idea of consoles, and it's like, okay, are we talking like launch lineups or games in general? And then we just realized like, oh, if we're going to talk about everything with all these consoles, again, like 30-hour, 50-hour podcast, it'll never end. We've done a couple hours here almost, and we tried to limit ourselves to just talking about how the console looks. Not even really the experience of playing
that by
it.
itself was difficult for us to even talk about.
Yeah, but Dreamcast takes it. So interesting. I didn't see this coming. I really didn't. Y'all have to believe me. I swear.
I did. I had an idea that you were going to fight for the Dreamcast until your last breath.
I always fight for Dreamcast no matter what the stakes, no matter even if I recognize deep within myself that it shouldn't win on whatever the category is, I'm still going to fight like hell. That said, considering it was a conversation on aesthetics, it's not a console that to me immediately says like, hey, that is an all-time great console design. But again, I guess it's like realizing like sometimes simple's best. Sometimes it really is about getting down to basics, but doing it with a little bit of flair.
For me, it would have been my top three would have been in no particular order: Dreamcast, PlayStation 5, and Sega Genesis.
Genesis is a good one.
Genesis, the weird xenomorph fucking look is just so naughty and so good.
I do love the Genesis. You know, if at any point it came off like I didn't, it was just because I was trying to argue for something, but love the Genesis. Man, again, it's just, you got to remove PS5 controller from the equation for me, because nothing comes close. Even the modern day, like the closest equivalent would be like the current Xbox controller, which is great. It feels really nice.
The Elite Pro Xbox controller is fucking next level good. I'm so stuck on the PlayStation 5 controller that I don't think I'll ever go back. It's really good.
I had a brief moment because I got an Xbox, like the current Xbox controller, before I got the PS5, and I was like, oh, is this like the new best controller ever made? Because it is really nice. And at first I was like, oh, this nice clickety-clack on the D-pad, that really like reinforces what you're doing. And then like cut to 30 minutes later, like, oh my God, this thing is so fucking loud. Just constantly
Please
clicking.
Stop the clickety-clack. Jesus, please, no. I don't need like clickety-clack anymore.
If anyone's sleeping in the adjoining room, they're going to wake up during your gaming session for sure. Just click, 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 click. Yeah. So remove that. I don't know. Genesis is great. Again, Super Famicom is great. And I didn't realize until our conversation today, fuck me, I love the Master System. I really
really do. I was surprised at how much I
myself.
loved it. I was surprised at how much I loved the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
I was willing to fight
one.
for that. I was willing to fight for the 360.
I went in thinking I didn't really care for it. And the more we talked about it, it's like, you know what? I like the Dreamcast. it does it right.
I guess I just fucking I like going from the sharp angles to the curves.
You like the curves.
I do like the curves.
We know what gym Bo's working out at.
Fuck off. Oh, Jesus. So that's our console wars, all of our brackets for March Mania this year, ladies and gentlemen. Sources, sorcerers, and sorcerers out there. Housekeeping, as always, a good time. You can contact us via email at sourcenotfoundpod@gmail.com. Find us everywhere you want to find us at Source Not Found Podcast. Being that YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, we're probably there. Brando, what are you doing at Twitch, my dude?
So this kind of doubles as a tease for our topic next month. Because what I've been playing over on Twitch, getting ready for the recent release of Alone in the Dark. I've been going through the series, Alone in the Dark. And I'm playing it over on Twitch because we're going to be talking about, in April, Alone in the Dark. We've got a reboot of sorts coming out. I guess it is a reboot, right? A reimagining of the first game. And we're going to be playing that and talking about it.
And we get to see some lovely, lovely work by Mr. Uwe Boll yet again.
Man. So as we're playing this new release, we are going to revisit our old beautiful boy, beautiful Boll. See another one of his classic films, his adaptation of Alone in the Dark. I've never seen this.
What a treat.
Have you?
I haven't either. No.
Okay.
I'm walking in open eyes, open mind, closed heart.
Yeah, we know better at this point to walk in any other way than to be fully prepared for the Uwe Boll experience. We know what to expect now.
Yeah. It's also the end of the month, so we like to shout out our sorcerers and founders. 13th Horseman, Jacob Spindell.
So I guess it's me now because you refused to attempt Norwegian, right? So Frederick Viberg Vorhog and Susie Daggs.
I just don't want to offend anyone, and I know I will if I try to.
Well, I don't either. It doesn't mean I'm any better than at attempting things that aren't English.
But you do it so well every time.
I don't. But Frederick, thank you. We appreciate you. I'm sorry.
Frederick,
I wish I were better. I'm trying to be better. I'm on the Duolingo kick. I'm just not there.
Frederick, I'm going to learn. I'm going to get this. I swear. Guys, happy March. We'll see you next month. Check them toilets for all those Freddy Kruegers and watch out for any white vans with clowns in them.
Stay dreaming.